I played guitar all my life. I started when I met the guys in the Salads in grade 7 in public school and was a guitar player then. And I've been playing guitar for a long time at that point. And so Grant was a great drummer or drummer in the Salads for a little kid. There's videos on our DVD, and it still blows my mind how good of a drummer he was for a kid in grade 7. Like, he was excellent. and and so he introduced himself to me, and I started playing with him, and that's really where it really took off for me, because I knew how to play Beatles songs and a bunch of sort of conservatory classical music, and I knew some jazz standards and the stuff that you would learn in a sort of scholastic sense from your father, who went to jazz school and studied classical guitar. And when I met Grant, he was a huge Kiss fan and wore cutoff shirts and had long hair, and his room was plastered with Kiss posters, and he had a double
He was the cool kid.
Oh, he was so cool. And he showed, and then it got to a point where it was just me and him, and then Dave showed up. Dave had bought a guitar player in the Salads.
Ziemba.
And Ziemba.
That was my best guess.
Yeah. So yeah, we used to just jam all the time, and that's truly where my love came from it, because then I started to realize what it was to rock and what that felt like, and what those sort of friendships. So it was really all based on friendships, I guess. It started with my dad, but became a friendship based thing, and we all became kind of shredders because it was I think it was just the nature of our relationships. We were just always challenging each other.
And so was it with Dave showing up as a guitarist that you transitioned to bass?
Well, it was the three of us for the longest time as little kids in public school, and we were playing little shows and stuff. But truth be told, Dave was not invited to play our first show because he still didn't know how to play guitar. And that he has admitted to us that's what drove him to say, screw these guys. And he got so damn good, like so fast. And he's so over the top amazing. There, if you just Google or look on YouTube for Dave Ziemba, Ziemba, you'll find all sorts of crazy videos of him just playing, and it's off the charts amazing. When he went to MI in Hollywood, he was the top of the school there, and the other guys he's playing with, the drummers ended up playing with Chick Corea, the bass player was playing with Dweezil Zappa, but Dave came home and we kept the band going. But I became a bass player not only because Dave got so good, but because the bass player that we hired decided he didn't want to do it anymore. He wanted to become a school teacher. He decided to go to school, and I don't want to tour. I don't want to. I think it was at a System of a Down and Incubus show we went to at the Opera House. He's like, I don't want to do this. He was watching the show. I don't want to do this, which was really hard. But at the time, we had just finished our very first record, and it was exciting. We were doing shows, and we were doing things like Canadian Music Week, and so I said, you know what, I'll just play bass. I thought it would be easy, and it was not easy. That's when I learned my do theory, that I couldn't screw up. Like if I played bad notes, it was terrible, right? So it came from a combination of Dave being so damn good. He was also spoiled rotten by his parents, so his gear just kept getting better.
He just sounded better.
And it sounded so much better. His tones, and he's like this tone monster as well. He just really understands gear, and always had way too much of it, but it just crushed me. It just kept crushing me. And I'm more of a meat and potatoes kind of guy. I like an amp and a cable and plug me in. It just made sense. But over the years, I've learned to play bass. And when I started playing with I Mother Earth is what, it's funny. I played in cover bands for years playing bass, and I do all sorts of corporate gigs playing bass, and play with I sometimes call myself bass player to fancy guitar players, because those are the gigs I seem to get. Yeah, so I learned how to play bass when I joined I Mother Earth is what I wanted to say. That's when I really learned.
Okay, that's where
when I really learned how to play bass. It's funny because I made all of those Salads records as a bass player. Produced all those, and did tours endlessly, but I learned that I could play bass best with a pick at that point. And like I was doing my fingers and stuff just for the tone of it, but because I was a guitar player for so many years, and I went to Humber College for guitar as well. I went to jazz school for guitar. Um, that it would just like I was sick of having notes ghost and be slightly at a time. It was driving me crazy because my fingers and still trying to learn. So I just reverted back to a pick. And was like, oh, it's so tight and fast. I can do this now. Who cares if I'm going to get teased about playing bass with a pick? It sounds good. And so when I joined I Mother Earth, Bruce only plays with his fingers, and his fingers are like lead.
I don't get how bass players can do that. I mean, I'm a guitarist, and when I play bass, it's like the speed, like I can't get the speed that I can get with a pick. And you watch the good bass players, and it's like, I don't know how they do it.
Ridiculously fast, right? Like the things that he does with two fingers going but da da da. I have to go back and forth. Bop, 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 bop. I figured out how to do it because it's the only way I can get up the speed. Yeah. He can do it all down strokes where I have to go down, up, down, up, down, up, and then I can get to the speed. But
so insane.
So it really forced me to learn how to play. Like it forced me to learn how. I really, 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 really wanted that gig. And so I practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and never ever stopped. I would sleep and and I learned how to play bass.
That's so funny. You learn how to play bass by joining like one of the most iconic Canadian rock bands of all time.
It was, well, like some of the
that's motivation
bass lines in Canadian rock of all time. And it's like, I had no, if I wanted to do this, I had to get good, right? Like, and the funny thing with Jag is he just believed in me. And when I first met with him, when we were going to discuss whether I was going to play some bass with them, and just do rehearsals, really, I just went to his house and we sat across from each other on couches and just played guitar together for like half an hour. And then he's like, ah, that's cool. And we just sort of noodled around. We weren't playing I Mother Earth songs. And then we sat in the kitchen and drank coffee for a couple hours. But it was, all he said to me was, you can't play it now, but I can tell by your personality that you're going to learn how to do all of this. You're going to figure it out. So I'm good. Let's go have a coffee. Right. Like, it's like, what? Really? Okay. All right. So
what was it like having Bruce there where you're able to shadow him to learn the songs and not just like here are the 4 albums, get to it?
Well, I have, Jag also gave me bass and drum isolated tracks of all the records, which is super cool.
That would be cool. Not just to learn the bass, but just to hear that. That would be awesome.
Oh, yeah. I can hear where Jag plays bass, right? Like where you can hear Bruce's fingers. I get really used to hearing what his hands sound like. And I'm very used to hearing what Jag sound like now as well. So when I hear that bass track isolated, I can hear it going from Bruce's hands to Jag's hands for certain parts, which I've always done recording as well. Like, I'll play the guitar on Salad's tunes if it's doubling the bass part, just because it's gonna be so tight. And so it sounds like he's done that on records as well. Like when they're doing unison riff stuff, I might be mistaken, but that's what it sounds like to me.
Well, I've gone back and I've listened to all 4 albums from I Mother Earth with a good pair of headphones. I went back and listened to the Salads as well. I got to be prepared. I was already familiar with all the music, but I wanted to, as a fan, really get in that zone before coming into this this podcast episode. And when you talk about, being able to hear Jag and maybe there was some bass and different tones and all that, Summertime in the Void, there's an awesome, kind of bass riff that goes through the whole song and is kind of guiding that song. But there are parts where I'm not sure if it's guitar or bass. It's like there's this one sonic tunnel going on. So I thought I would throw that out.
I love to hear you say that actually, Joel, because it's reminding me when I first started learning these songs, that was I don't know if it was a complaint. It was my comment about how hard it was to learn them. To Jag was I can't hear the bass. I can't tell when it's bass. I can't tell when it's guitar. So I was learning guitar parts on bass, thinking it was the bass part and stuff. And he was like, "What are you talking about? The bass is as clear as day, right? And so then
well,
I
he
was
knows the
taking,
difference, right?
yeah,
He
but
he
then
can
I'm
he can
taking,
visualize without even hearing. He
oh, of
knows,
course. And then I was taking those records, and I remember playing it in the van with Dave Zimba from the Salads, and going, can you hear the bass line? Right.
Mm.
And Dave, of course, so in tune, goes, yeah. I was like, what? I can't hear it. So it's so nice to hear you say that, because I hear that too. It's so interweaved and mixed in a way that it sometimes it's like, is that guitar or bass? And also Jag is such an incredible sort of rhythmic guitar player, and he plays slap guitar, right? So sometimes it comes across as it sounds like it might be a bass. I'm trying to think of that one song that was in Fast and Furious on Quicksilver Meat Dream. Oh my gosh, there's a tune on there that starts with it sounds like slap bass, but it's actually a guitar. And I remember for that rehearsal, I came in playing the guitar part, and he's like, no, man, you just go boom, 3, 4, boom, 2, 3, 4,
Wow.
boom. And I go boom, boom, back, 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 boom, boom, back, back. And I'm,
Yeah.
oh, shit. Okay.
There are a few bands where when you're listening, you're not sure if it's guitar or bass. Like there's I Mother Earth, there's Muse. Sometimes
Yeah.
they have some cool riffs where you're not sure, and there's just three of them, so it's like they have to, and like Rush, where there's only three, so between them they sound like 12 people, but
Well,
they're each
it
doing different
meshes.
things.
And it's also learning
The White Stripes as well, sometimes you can't tell bass or guitar.
Absolutely, because he's playing both, and he'll play a baritone as well. And so the wow, yeah, you've opened up a huge can of worms and are making me think real hard about all of this. But I've learned so much about tone, and what you're talking about is the tone of a good rock bass, and